What's up, YouTube? Coming back at you again. I want to discuss a few things on my mind. Welcome back. If you're a returning viewer, appreciate you guys. And if you guys could do me a favor, hit the like button, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the videos. Anyway, I want to jump into it. It's talking about, always people looking for a traditional man and paying the bills, right? And I'm just going to go off with my own personal experiences because, that's what life is, anecdotal and personal experience. So my thoughts and processes on thought process on this is, in order to be a traditional man, right? By accepted definition, you're taking care of the household. I mean, you're working and you're providing and you're taking care of your family, and if not all, the majority or the bulk of the financial obligation falls on you, right? And so many times we hear about women who are looking for a traditional man, right? And the funny thing is, there's very little traditional men, but obtaining the prerequisites for being, or the requisites for being a traditional man is easier for a man to attain in this day and age, because once you have the money, you're able to pay for these things. And I think, for most men who are raised properly and correctly, it's in our nature to provide and take care of things and protect things, right? Provision and protection are the things that go hand in hand with being a traditional man, right? And, so many women want that particular attribute, and they want a man who does those things in addition to other things. But, right now we're just talking about, that part of being a traditional man. But a lot of women will not be a traditional woman. They are stuck in modern femininity and modern traditions. So what do I mean by that? Now, I'm not saying that, okay, you can't work as a woman. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are looking to a man to provide, right, for provision and protection, then you need to be doing your traditional roles. And for me, in my household, what that traditional role means is you're providing and taking care of me, and you're taking care of the household things. That means you work for the family. I work for the family outside of the home. You work for the family inside of the home, right? So what does that mean? That means your efforts, your daily efforts, are making sure that the home is running properly. If you have children, the children are taken care of, they're nurtured, and the priorities are taking care of the household, right? Now, some women will say, oh, well, a man works his hours and then he comes home and then that's when his duty stops. No, the reason I say no, because I heard it said, a woman said that the other day, a woman can choose whether she wants to show affection to that man. She can choose, what she wants to do for that day. A man has no choice, if he's a provider, to pay the bills. Like, I have no choice in protecting you. I have no choice in providing for you, right? Those particular things are always taken care of. I remember I was dating a young lady, and I'm thinking she's gotten better. But I was dating a young lady, and she wanted to be a traditional, woman, and she wanted to be pampered and taken care of. Now, at my income level, I'm not able to, take you on yachts and, private jets and, just completely drop a bag whenever. Now, and I think that's the other thing that a lot of people get it twisted. A provider, a lot of men can be providers if people expect less for their lifestyle, right? And that's the thing, a lot of times, the men that were providers, yes, you could definitely raise a family off of a lot less income. However, these people only had one car, right? So that kills a lot of people right there, because that one car situation, most families have at least two. right? And they're living in a bigger household. When, like I said, when you look back at those fathers that were taking care of the home, they had one car, and they had smaller homes, right? If you look at mama's house and granny's house and things that the houses that we were raised in as children, as grandchildren and children, and your parents were raising children, they were small houses, right? What does that mean? Not a lot of resources are spent on heating the home. Not a lot of resources are spent on renovating the home. You work what you got. You make sure your car, well, after it was paid for, you still had that car. You maintain that car a lot longer. So people say, well, cars don't last as long. Toyotas last a long time, and especially if you get an older Toyota in certain model years, they can last a long time. But how many people would be okay and comfortable with driving an older Toyota? Nothing flashy about it. Gets you from point A to point B. Let's say it's a Camry, or you have the one single family SUV, whether that be 4Runner or something like that, and that's all you guys have. You do it for everything. You use it for everything, and that's the car you rock with. So there's cars out there that will last a lot longer, but we don't tend to keep them because that's old, right? Oh, the new model's out, and so now you have to have a newer car, which obviously you never get to pay it off and enjoy those funds coming back into your account. And B, you have a house, and the house too small, we're outgrowing the house. People didn't outgrow the houses back then. It wasn't until a certain time point when people were like, oh, well, the kids are getting bigger, it's time to get a new house. So when there's a possibility that you can pay the house off, you're coming close to paying the house off, you're like, oh no, I need a new house. There's a statistic, I don't know if it's still the same, but I heard it years ago. Most people don't stay in the house more than 5 years. How can you ever pay your house off if you're always getting a new house within 5 to 10 years, right? So by the time you're diving into hitting more of the equity and the principal of the loan, you're already moving on to the next house. And the same thing with a car. By the time you're close to paying your car off, it's a couple years old now, and now I need the latest model, I need to trade it in. So I bring up those factors because, these are the things that if somebody really wanted a traditional man, these are the things that come along with it, right? Understanding that everything's not going to be brand new. You're not going to have the biggest home, but you're going to be taken care of, right? Because if you understand that, hey, we might not get the biggest house, but I can pay this house on my income. You might not have the best car, but I can pay this house. I can pay this car off on my income, right? You get the second car. That's how people would get a second car, right? Let's say, they had a car, they paid it off. Pops drives the older car. Mom has the newer car, right? In traditional, that's how I plan to do it with my family. I enjoy cars, so I'll probably be looking at a lot of older cars. I'm into the cars that are in the early 2000s. I think a lot of classics there, late 90s, early 90s, older 80s. So, if I have multiple cars, they're cars I plan to keep. And, my wife will probably, if we do have newer cars, God willing, it will be her that's driving the newer car just because of the safety features. And, I don't want her ever having to deal with, fixing a car or getting stranded somewhere. Versus if something happens to my car, I'm a guy, I can figure it out. And especially if I have multiple older cars, the cars that I like, I'll just hop into something else, until I fix that car, right? And that's been my philosophy for years because I watched my grandfather do it. He had multiple cars, and my grandmother didn't have to work. And even with my father, he maintained that same thing. He didn't adopt a lot of things that I'm into, and his father was, but he always about taking care of his household, making sure that things were done around the house that were needed, right? And being a provider and protector. So you know, to fall back to what I was saying, right? So a lot of women just aren't traditional women. You know, we're not going to talk about, you know, some of the other things that come along with that. We're just going to talk about, you know, once you find your woman, and that's the woman for you. You know, because there's a whole plethora of things that I could talk about which makes them not traditional women. But you know, one thing I would say, you know, having a desire to have more than what's necessary, in order to have a good life, right? I think, you know, that speaks leaps and bounds when you're like, you know, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine years ago, and they were looking to purchase their first home, and he had a budget he wanted to pay, and it was a decent budget. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't nothing crazy. You know, nothing super cheap like, oh, I only can spend $1,000. You know, he was like, I can pay this. If she pays anything, we're only looking at her paying maybe a couple $100. You know what I'm saying? Less than $500 towards the mortgage. But because she wanted something grand, you know, they almost went twice what his budget was. So what does that mean? And you know, basically he couldn't afford the house that she wanted. So now, you know, she looks at him like, okay, well, maybe, you know, he's not the man I needed, because the man I need and the man I want should be able to do this, and I shouldn't have to be able to do this by myself. Because that's the kicker. She could afford that mortgage by herself, no question. He couldn't, and I think that's, you know, comes into a lot of things where, you know, women are like, well, men don't make the money that we used to make, or that I need him to make in order for me to feel successful. So that puts him in a position to where he's you know, feels less to the man, because he can't do the things that he would love to do in order to take care of the household, right? And I've seen it, you know, play out several times with different family members and different friends. I look at, you know, the wife wants more than what the husband feels comfortable affording, right? It even happened in my own family. My mother wanted a bigger house than what she already had. I mean, the house that she had was very cheap, very affordable, and it was a decent house in a decent, you know, working class neighborhood. But she wanted something grander, bigger, and they moved into a bigger house. This is my stepfather, and the house, you know, the house was bought based off of, you know, overtime and dual incomes. What happens when you have overtime and dual incomes is that if overtime stops, or one of those incomes stops, you know, you're unable to afford the home, and they comfortably couldn't afford the home that they were, you know, previously in. So, you know, I would say that, you know, part of being a traditional wife is understanding that if you want your husband to take care of you, is making it easy for him to take care of you, right? And, you know, so we talk about the financial portion of it, but also the emotional, mental portion of it. If your husband's working, you know, 40 plus hours a week, because I think, honestly, in order to afford a family, unless you have a really great job, it's going to be 40 plus hours, at least, bare minimum, right? Which probably means a full-time job in a hustle, full-time job in a business, something to bring in that extra income that would supplant your wife working, especially in today's age. But like the Bible states, that she should be doing some work in the house as well. She should have her own little hustle. You know, when the Bible talks about finding a good wife, it doesn't say, you know, she sits at home and just takes care of the kids. No, she has her own little hustle. She's out there, like, it talks about her being in the market, selling her trinkets, things that she did, you know, getting that food and bringing, like, she's contributing to the household. She's just not working hard, right? Her job is making sure to enhance whatever he's doing. And I think that's what what it means to be a helpmate, right? I think women multiply the things you give them to. So it is on us to make sure we pick the right woman and give them the things to multiply. But it's also for a woman the traditional woman multiplies what's already given to her. So if I give her a house, she makes it a home. If I plant a seed in her child, she brings forth life. You know what I mean? If I give her, you know, my full resources, she blossoms them resources, right? And And I think a lot of women need to take a step back and understand that, look, if you want a traditional man, you want to be a trad wife, expect less. Not nothing in the negative, but don't look at it and be like, okay, we can afford a 4-bedroom house, in this neighborhood, but I want a 6-bedroom house in that neighborhood, right? Oh, my kids are getting grown, I have multiple kids, and we need a bigger house. No, your kids are not going to live there forever. And even if they did, they have to figure out, hey, we only got 4 bedrooms. Figure it out. I mean, because that's what some of our parents did. They shared bedrooms. And some of them shared bedrooms for years. It's only now when we're like, oh, every kid got to have his own bedroom. Well, what if you got multiple kids? What happens when mom gets old or dad gets old and they have to move in with you? That now that time when you're taking on, additional, more money and more children, to say, hey, let's go spend more money on a bigger house. Let's stress ourselves even more to do more things and buy more things that we don't need. So, just my philosophy, I think that, in order for you to have your husband paying bills, or for you to be a husband paying bills, you need to understand and pick the right one to be paying the bills for, that doesn't put extra stress on you and that makes your life easier. Because if you're working out there trying to make her life easier, she should be doing the same. Right? But anyway, my thoughts, guys. If you can hit the like button, comment, what your thoughts on it. I really appreciate you guys coming back and listening to the video. Looking to expect more videos about these type of subjects in the future, as well as some motivational topics. Really appreciate you guys listening. Thanks so much. Have a great day.